Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your media and production questions 7 days a week. It's great to have you here on a Friday. Alexander Knight's our reader today. Alexander, what's the first question?
First question this morning is coming from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida, USA. GPC VM question. NVIDIA T4 is not showing up in Device Manager, just 3D video controller. NVIDIA T4 is on the machine config in Google. Is this because the VM is pay-as-you-go? Google GPU bait and switch?
Guy?
Those are kind of strong words to say. Paid switch. If it's on there, it's on there. If you paid for it, you paid for it. I'm curious as to how you set it up initially. So I'm going to jump into my back end. And when I was looking at it, the machine configuration, you probably just went here at the very beginning and said GPU type NVIDIA T4, number of GPUs, and picked yours that way. And the way that I did mine, and I'll have to look up how I did it, was I did what was called an NVIDIA gaming Windows server. And when I launched that instance, so that's probably your problem, is that you don't have the NVIDIA grid drivers installed for that T4, because mine, once it's launched, I do have this NVIDIA control panel. And here, as I said earlier in the week, is where I could go in here and I could pick vMix as an app to add and have that control. So you just pick pick vMix. Where'd vMix go? There it is. Click vMix and then add it, and then inside of here, well, actually, I don't have my vMix license on here. I moved it, but basically, you'll then be able to launch vMix. But essentially, once you have this in the Amazon AWS terms, they call it an AMI, which is a machine image. And so I think that's what you're missing, is you're not using a machine image that already has those drivers installed. So look and find where it is that you get their version of an AMI. You don't just want to say, here, fire up this instance, this raw instance. Otherwise, you're going to have to go through the hoops of installing those yourself. So you could spend a bunch of time trying to Google those drivers, and Chiri and I spent a bunch of time writing scripts and stuff trying to get the exact drivers, and it was like a cat and mouse game of trying to find the exact studio drivers versus gaming drivers, grid drivers. So there's a bunch of different NVIDIA drivers, and it sounds like you're just missing them, but I would look for the version of the AMI like I was showing you there. Mine was called 2019 NVIDIA Gaming. If you search for that, I'm sure you can find it.
And John Wallace comes in the chat and also says, drivers. So, Andy, if you get that fired up and working, show us in Discord. I'd love to see that. Next question.
And
go ahead.
Just real quick, too, I'd be happy to help in after hours after we have a board meeting this morning. But after that, I can jump in there and walk you through it if you want.
All right. Go ahead, Alexander.
This one is coming in from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington. As an avid user of multiple controllers and methods of manipulating systems and software, are there any new ideas out there? Different button systems, touch surfaces, different approaches to automation?
Alex.
Yeah, I think that there is. Obviously, we're assuming that you're using Stream Decks, and things like that. So I'm not going to mention those, but I did mention it, I guess. Anyway, so the middle things is another thing that if you haven't seen before, I'm sure that you have, but middle things is another thing that a lot of us pay a lot of attention to when it comes to controllers. They do a lot of great tools. And then the older school but very powerful tools are also in JL Cooper. So if you haven't seen JL Cooper, this is kind of the grown-up control surfaces. so anyway, so these are the fit and finish of them. The build quality is going to be a completely different thing, but also the cost will be a completely different thing. So when you want to look at stuff that's a little bit bigger and a little bit more industrial, a lot of us go and I've bought a lot of JL Cooper stuff in the past as controllers. So they can they give you a lot of, and they're built oftentimes for specific purposes. The other thing I will say is that I really like iPads with control surfaces. I really like using iPads and I got really hooked on it because of Mimo Live. It's all Oliver's fault. That I started building those little interfaces, and I started realizing that that's all I wanted was a screen that I could design and put buttons where I wanted them and be able to have them do the things I want them to do. So next year for me, I'll be spending a lot of time playing with more and more of that. So I really like the idea of being able to design my interface.
Guy?
Yeah, what's old is cool again as well. There's some software called Central Control, and there's all these LC11 new tech controllers out there on the market. You can get them on eBay. The neat thing is that they're really built like tanks, and you could use Central Control, even their basic, I think on sale this week for Black Friday, it's like $30. So it's a translation tool. It basically takes MIDI, M-I-D-I, takes MIDI commands and translates them. So you could design buttons to do certain things. And then there was this other one that John Idelson turned me on to yesterday. It's called a Corsair Nova Blade. I'd love to be able to do something with this. I mean, if you're talking about new and what the cool kids are using, I'm not in that space with the Roblox and whatever other shooter game that they're using. But this is new. It came out a month ago, Corsair Nova Blade Pro, and I would love to get this working with something. I think it's PS5 and all those cool games, but it looks neat.
It looks like an accordion trainer. I don't even know.
It looks like a foot pedal for somebody with 20 toes.
It's the other thing, Guy, you and I had a back and forth recently because I got a couple of PTZs that I could control over Visca or NDI or the proprietary stuff. What's been your kind of flavor of choice when you're doing remote operation on those sorts of cameras?
On those type of cameras, it depends on the camera because like the Sony FR7s, you get their IP500. So there's certain models that you're best to use theirs because we're calling the presets and whatnot. So and then it depends on if I'm on site or remote. But Scarhoy with what they call the Hall effect, and that's with this Corsair Nova Blade. It's where it could slow things down gradually, logarithmic. How do you say that word?
Logarithmically, so that there's a nice deceleration that's tapered at the end. So a lot of times they'll tell me over comms, they'll be like, and finesse that move, and slow it down, and out. So it depends on what you're doing. What I was excited about earlier in the week, we jumped into after hours and after the other day's show, and a couple of us were controlling these PTZ cameras that I have here locally with that new what do they call that? Iris from Audinate. So Audinate bought this company for $28 million, and now this week they announced, here, it's open to the public, go ahead and play with it. So we installed it on a weak machine, and later I would learn that you really need a strong machine. But one of the things I learned in after hours was how to do optimization of PCs. So it's amazing when people in the community jump out and they're like, oh, your machine's bogging down. You think it's because you've got this and that installed here. Here's how to do that. So there was a bunch of people, and there were like 25 people in there helping me figure it all out. But yeah, that software right there, CJ, you could put IP controllers onto that. So we hooked up my, this thing. When Jeff Keithley and I were testing Iris out, we hooked up this little like $30 gaming controller, and it immediately, so from a web browser, so I could control his PTZ in Texas. He had a UE150, and he was letting us control his, and all I did was I received a link. I opened up the link. I plugged in my gaming controller, hit the tab that said controllers, and it was right there. And I was already able to pan, tilt, zoom, all with a gaming controller. So I could give anybody in the world, I could ship them one of these things or say, go on Amazon, buy this. And you could be controlling a UE150 in another country and 5 of them. So the software is like, it's free for one device. And then you pay for cloud usage after 5 gigabytes. So but I've kind of found a way around that. Jeff Keithley and I were like, hey, we could use just NDI Bridge for the visuals or Zoom to get the picture to the remote operator and not have to eat those cloud fees, because that's where they get you, is they get you by saying you got to pass the video image through their system, and then it starts being $100 a month. But take a look at Iris. It's really interesting stuff. It's tryiris.ai is the website. Alex?
Jack Cannon said that he said, I can demo middle control today in a couple hours in after hours, controlling Sony cameras with DJI gimbals. So we'll put a post out if that actually happens. Thanks, Jack.
Next question.
This question comes in from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. What was this morning's Cloudflare issue?
Alex?
So there's a vulnerability that happened earlier in this week, and they went in to fix it, and they took down part of Cloudflare for about a half an hour. So it's not like it was out for a very long time, but it did hit a variety of Shopify and Zoom, and a couple other folks got hit by it. And so this is it's a hard problem. I think that we are looking at most likely an architectural problem with Cloudflare, and this gets into kind of what we would oftentimes refer to as technical debt. In the sense that they built something that isn't very robust as far as how it runs updates. And so it appears that they can't do it in small increments, or they can't do it in small enough increments. What we see in larger companies, you rarely see an outage with YouTube because those things happen in very small increments. They roll something out, they see how it works, and then they keep on expanding, and it takes days sometimes, or even weeks or months for them to roll out updates, depending on what the updates are. But that's their A/B testing. They're making sure that everything's working. They're slowly pushing these things out rather than trying to push them out to a larger system in the way that Cloudflare appears to be doing it. But I think that they're probably in a situation where they don't have those update processes and systems in place, and it's not something they can just go, okay, let's do that next week. They have to kind of rethink their architecture. But that's my guess, not knowing anything from the inside, although I am an avid Cloudflare user, so I worry about that kind of thing. But they do it. I think that they're probably on the back end talking about exactly what I'm talking about, which is that we've got to figure out a way to roll these out more gracefully.
Yeah, and even, organizations that are considerably smaller than a Cloudflare, that maybe only have hundreds of employees and far fewer vendors that are depending on them, when they're doing updates, they're rolling it out to a small sample before it's going out to that next level, or they're doing those A/B tests, like Alex said. And it is one of the things that I think we should all be thinking about as we're trying to figure out what are our ways out to the internet. If the internet is our means of getting our signal out to the world, we need to think, okay, what is my primary, my alternate, my contingency, my emergency? And if they're all going back into the same pipe and the event means enough, then that's a consideration. Now, we've always said, hey, if AWS goes down, we've got bigger problems as a world than what my show is.
Yeah,
but
Mickey said, wait, Alphabet doesn't push out updates that break things? And John said they often do, but usually they break a region with canary deploys. So they're putting it in a place where it's not as important. So if Google's breaking for you, sorry, you're not what they're worried about. Also, you'll find that where Google doesn't generally break is where they make money. So where you see Google break things is where they're giving stuff to you, or there's some kind of service, but their ad sales and YouTube and other things pretty rarely break.
Next question.
This question is coming in from Paul Vahus in Austin, Texas. Users on both Reddit and Apple's official forums have noticed that the iPhone 17 Pro does not allow night mode to be used when shooting portrait mode shots. Why the change? What is Apple thinking?
Alex?
I'm surprised they ever let that happen. The problem is that those are both computationally expensive processes, and trying to do both of them at the same time was probably really hard to do well. My guess is they tried it, they thought it would work, and the edges were bad. I can tell you that because I've done ones early on when it was available. Not worth taking a photo. So you had to learn to turn that stuff off. So I think that they just you're reaching the edge of computational photography right now. So I think that's why they turned it off, is because it wasn't a great experience.
We all get very excited about how the quality of stills is enhanced by these computational methods, and it's always exciting to see what innovations is Samsung coming out with and Apple's coming out with. But ultimately, you can't. It's just like the stuff that we do. You can't do technology for technology's sake. It has to be knock it out of the park, or else people are going to stop getting excited about it. And one of the things that historically Apple's been good at is being able to put those innovations out into the marketplace and have it just work or have it feel like magic. Lately, it has felt like some things that aren't quite fully cooked are starting to bubble up to the surface. And I hope that they don't lose sight. Next question.
This question comes from Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois. Anything I need to be aware of while working with a QSC TouchMix 8 this weekend?
Go ahead, Alexander. Don't use the touchscreen. The touchscreen on those things, I know it's a touch mixer, and the one main feature doesn't work well. It is just this horrible touchscreen, and it's not responsive like an iPad. I think it's resistive touch, and you're mashing your finger trying to get buttons to respond. The text is impossibly tiny to read. So what I would suggest you do is hopefully have an iPad there, because the app that allows you to wirelessly connect to the QSC with the built-in Wi-Fi dongle is a much, much smoother experience. So I would mix from the tablet app, not from that touchscreen. I mean, just open the graphic EQ on the main bus and tell me I would challenge you to see if you can actually read the text for the frequencies on the graphic EQ. It is impossibly tiny. It's like 8-point font.
Next question.
This one's from Paul Vol, who's in Austin, Texas. Would these comms headsets also work as microphones for a sports event? And there's a link to godocs.com.
TJ, what do you think?
We were talking about these prior to the show this morning backstage. And if you're doing, if you're just using it for comms or whatever, sure, they could be useful. I always prefer a wire if I can get it. Some of the things that they showed where in the studio, it's like, well, you could just wire yourself up because you're not moving around necessarily. I wouldn't use them as a broadcast type of thing, though. Not like sports broadcasters you'll see often will do in the booth. They'll be having the headset microphone on or something like that. I don't think that would be applicable for that, but for comms on a non-professional production, perhaps.
Alex?
I'm not sure if they have any output. They're really designed to talk to each other. And this is a low-cost intercom system. Do not use this as a broadcast mic. I mean, this is not what this is built for. It's gonna break up. It's going to not, the mics aren't going to be very expensive. They're going to be really tinty. I'm just making this up, but I'm almost positive that you'll have breakup, tinty sound. You'll have a lot of breathing noises. You'll have all of those things. And I don't even know if they can output. They're wireless. They're designed, I think, just to talk to each other. So they're just headset to headset. There's no base station that I know of here. It's hard to tell because their website is so bad. It looks pretty, but there's no information. Like you can't figure out what they actually have here. So maybe it's brand new, but I would avoid them for now.
Next question.
This one's from Zach Stahlsmith in Chicago, New York. I'm starting to get more into cloud production. Guy, would you be willing to give a quick overview of the Cochran Cloud?
That sounds like an evil lair. Like, welcome to the Cochran Cloud.
I'm
ready. Go ahead, Guy.
It's kind of funny as we had the Google Cloud question earlier. The whole reason why I had that infrastructure is in case of a Cloudflare style crash in AWS. So there was at a time where people were having problems getting AWS instances. And so I fired up a Google Cloud environment and connected two machines together so that I could prove that NDI flowed between two, because that's one of the things about the cloud is it's other people's hardware. And basically, how much do you want to pay for that hardware? Do you need something really, really strong? What a lot of people are doing in the cloud is are using VMs that are divided up. So like Jeff Keithley has a really powerful like $10,000 machine, and then he has a bunch of Ubuntu and Windows environments in each. So like, let's say one server could do 50 instances. And so they're really lightweight. They're just getting a slice of all that processing power. Now here, what I'm doing in my little cloud, and the only reason why this came about is because my neighborhood happened to have a 10 gigabit offering for internet, which is faster than what I get out of AWS or Google. So my house is actually faster connected to the internet with lower ping times. So I started offering a few people services to stick their machines here. So I have a rack, and basically I pulled a Carl and put together a quick little freeform diagram. So, you have your Macs and PCs, and one of the big benefits is I can stick a big RAID here. So I have a couple 28 terabyte RAIDs, and that's the storage. So somebody could have Resolve or Premiere, and they could be in a hotel on their little wimpy 2017 MacBook in Mexico, and they could be editing on a powerhouse Mac Studio that costs $5,000 connected to 28 terabytes. And to them, they're just scrolling around. They could hear the audio. They can make cuts. It just feels like they're there. So that's one of the benefits of the cloud that people don't think about is you could be in a wimpy connection in a far away location and using really powerful hardware at somewhere else. So the Monday show in extra hours is actually cut here. That machine is sitting. I never moved it, so it's actually sitting right here. So there's the cloud right there. So you see it? It's pretty cool looking. So I'll move that. And there's a banana for scale. So that's the cloud. It's just somebody else's hardware sitting on a home machine. So there are some downsides to this. The power goes out here. I have a couple generators, but they're not like what I want to get, which is a whole home, instant on. So I have a couple of UPSs. So it starts to get into this big infrastructure thing. And I'm not trying to create like a big, massive, Amazon killer, because with 10 gigabit, that goes away pretty quick if I get 10 users at 1 gigabit a piece. So I'm not trying to compete with those guys. It's just kind of what we'd call a boutique cloud. So that's a word.
It's an artisan small batch cloud.
Yeah, exactly. And I can always pass stuff over. I mean, I have, again, environments. I have tons of instances in AWS of something comes about that does need deployment properly in a data center, then I can always move it. And I have them in I have options for all the major cities, wherever AWS has one. And I even went international and signed up. And so I have GPU instances worldwide if things came about, if I needed them.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, you've got to have probably have EcoFlows stacked up. If you're actually if there's a production that's depending on you, I would get so anxious about just making sure that there was just belt and suspenders everywhere, because I am the single point of failure for that, and they could be doing everything right, and I wouldn't want to make them look bad.
That's funny that you mentioned that part, because that's the bridge where I'm on right now, the divide, because my son works for a cell phone tower installer. And so he pulls up these trucks in front of our house with these massive Generac generators for the cell towers. And I'm like, oh, you could get those at cost, and I could just stick one right there. It's, like the size of this room. It's like 12 feet, it's just massive. So maybe one day, if I was a good boy this year, Santa might, help me out with it. Generac.
Next question.
This question is coming in from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington. What makes the difference on return on investment for companies expanding into live streaming? Is it the audience interaction, and should we be investing into new tech to accomplish a more meaningful experience? What could that be?
Alex?
Yeah, I think that the biggest problem we have right now is that people who are building the events still know the events that they know, and they try to make, how do we make our physical event be the physical event but in the virtual world? And that has not been super successful. So it's really rethinking how these events can work and what those architectures can look like. I do think that maybe we're not the only solution, but I think that what we do here is probably more effective than what I can't watch other people's live streams anymore. I'm used to watching Q&A. I'm used to seeing conversation, people presenting on a virtual background with a slide deck. That's not the future. That's really not the future. And so people have to give that up, and they have to realize that they can post the videos, make nice videos. And one of the things that I've been doing is you'll see more of it in December, is building videos inside a Keynote, because I want to show people that you don't have to be a video editor to build videos that you can put online that teach people things. Here's a concept, here's a bunch of things, and you can just do it all in Keynote. You don't have to do anything else, and you can just push it out. And then that can be your pre-event content, and then you do the Q&A and have discussions. But I don't think that what we've seen what I mostly see, I don't think is really going to be what people want to watch. It's hard to watch when you're sitting in the room. It's hard to watch when you're outside of the room. Everyone wants to just ask questions, and everyone's afraid of questions, and so they put them right at the end for the last 10 minutes instead of making them most of the show, which is all people really care about. So I think that what we're doing here is still, I think, carving the future, not the whole future, but a piece of it that I think is pretty important for online events.
It's always amazing to me how many people don't have fond memories of sitting in school with PowerPoint and with a million words on the screen and then they get up in front of people, and then they just emulate that same behavior
They just don't know any better. Like they just don't know how to. They don't know how to throw a baseball. Like like they're trying to throw the baseball, but they're there's not. They don't understand where to put their elbow and where to put the ball. And I think that's the issue is that there's just we don't. And we'll go on when it's Friday and we got enough room. I'll go on a little bit of a thing is that we need to have our students in high school and grade school building presentations and doing things in front of people, because it's a big part of your job. When you leave college, unless you go into academia, government, or research or whatever, you will never write another paper, ever. We just make sure we're all clear. Like, it is going to be decks and demos forever. Like, every corporation, anybody who's good at a deck, a lot of things happen for them. But no one, unless you listen to Jeff Bezos for a second and they write those little papers that I don't even think, still haven't seen AWS write any of those when I'm interacting with them. Maybe someone will correct me. But so much of the world moves on decks, and everybody is so bad at them. If you are just a little better than everybody else, you'd be surprised at how much money you can move. I built a multi-million-dollar school in Rwanda on a Keynote slide deck. Like, literally, that's what it took to get the thing done, and it was a good one. Not a lot of words, a lot of animations. But the key is that we're not teaching people from the ground up, and that is the teacher. I have kids in school right now. The teachers don't know how to make presentations, and so they have bad presentations. Really bad ones. Just not bad, like just boring and hard to watch and hard to listen to. And lectures have not worked since Socrates. That's thousands of years. He realized that lectures didn't work 2,000 years ago. And said maybe we should have some discussion here. So we just have to understand that this whole process, this whole world that we've gotten ourselves into, is not working, and we need to rethink how we have conversations about things that we're learning.
Chris?
I think you're right, Alex. It's not working, but what is working is the giant machine, especially in corporate America, of people that keep pushing this broken communication style, and they get really good at doing something that's not good, and they just keep doing it. And the idea of breaking that habit or breaking that cycle is super daunting. And I work in an industry where people just say, well, but this is what they want. This is what we're going to give them.
The challenge is that it's that you don't get penalized for doing what everybody else is doing badly. You get penalized for taking a chance and people saying, "Oh, that was a disaster." Now, there's an upside that it might turn into something great, but what most people look at, especially when they have a good corporate job with a 401k and lots of stock and all these other things, is they are looking at their future. And they're looking at, if one step ahead, you're a leader, 2 steps ahead, you're a martyr. And sometimes they don't know where 2 steps is, and so they're very careful about how far they, step out of line to move things down the path. And so I think that's the challenge for anyone in a corporate environment or an education environment, or, is where do you push and turn and everything else to kind of, and sometimes it takes a long time. And you have to sometimes chip away at things as opposed to trying to change them 100%. And so anyway, it'll be interesting to see, where these companies, go with this stuff. But I think that we really have to rethink, how we interact with the users. What we have seen since COVID is no one thinks that they can't live stream anymore, like that they shouldn't live stream anymore. Like, everybody knows that there's an online component to this. And what we're seeing, the pattern is, people do want to get together, but they don't want to do it all the time. And they definitely don't want to fly all the time. And they don't want to do all these things. And so the number of people going to conferences or going to events is by and large falling off. Not 100%. Some people are figuring it out. But by and large, a lot of those, especially smaller events, are falling away. And so people have to figure out how to build better events. And I think that there is there's been events that we've even proposed that we've never done, which are very large events inside of Zoom, where you have plenaries that are then mixed with breakouts that are mixed with other discussions. And I think that those things could be really interesting, to rethink, how all those work. There's some architectural things in Zoom that would have to get improved to be more fluid, but I think that there's a lot of possibility there. So I think that we're going to continue to see that. I'm hoping that Zoom will continue to invest in event technology and less in office technology. It's not like, I don't think that's where they distinguish themselves. I think that there's a future for events that is online that I think Zoom is still in the pole position for. But the question is, will they execute on that? And right now they have the right team, but if they lose, if for any reason that team went away, then I think Zoom would be in trouble.
And Danny Grizzle in the chat mentions that he's done work for executives who warn, I don't ever want to see a presentation from my company that does the things that teachers do in presentations that they make at the school board I'm on. So hopefully there's leaders out there that are getting the message. Appreciate that comment. If you want to join Danny in the chat, you can go to officehours.global/join, and that's where you get the other half of the show. If you're watching on YouTube, great, but the chat is like half the show. Got to get in. So besides just the chat, we also can vote on the questions when we have a lot of questions like we do. Often on the show, you can figure out where we should be directing things. And also, the other thing you get when you go to officehours.global/join is if you want to see us spend a little bit more time chewing on things and talk about the future that could be, we tend to do that on the weekends. So check that out. That Saturday and Sunday are not broadcast, but they are available if you go to officehours.global/join. Next question.
This question is coming in from Robert A. Ober in Houston, Texas. Good morning. I have an AC adapter that fits in the battery slot in my Sony A9 III. The cam gets hot even with a 70-degree ambient room temp. Any cooling ideas?
Alexander, what do you think?
Yeah, so with Sony cameras, especially these ones that are not specifically cinema cameras that don't have active cooling systems, one of the things that you're going to want to do is make sure that the flip-out screen is not shut. It will get hotter that way. So if you pull out that screen, the tilt screen, that will help. The other thing you can do if you're running into issues, and from what I've seen, I don't own these cameras, but every time I've seen someone run into issues, it's because they were using the internal record function, which puts a lot of stress on the internal system because processors got to work hard, and they all seem to have this problem. In fact, even the recent Sony ZV-E10 Mark II that came out last year, it's not even that old. I was watching a review on YouTube with Gerald Undone. He did some record tests, and even in a air-conditioned suite, he ran into issues overheating. He did a test record, I think, for an hour, and the camera shut down. So you can get these active cooling solutions. There are companies like SmallRig, Ulanzi. They make these USB-powered fans. I'll just show you. Ulanzi has one here. This is $50, and this one just connects to USB-C. SmallRig also has one. I don't know if that one's any better. I haven't actually used these ones, but you may want to test these. Double check the specs, make sure it's compatible and it's going to fit on the camera. But there are third-party active cooling solutions you can attach to the camera.
Alex?
I agree. The first step is making sure the screen is never closed. So the screen always has to, or on a Sony camera, the screen always has to be removed from the body. It's another heat generator as well. And so you open it up and point it out. So I have a FX30 and a ZV-E10 one that my wife uses. And both of them, the first thing you do is pull that window up and open it up. And then I have to admit, I benefit from the fact that I like my ambient temperature to be very cold. So I work at 66 degrees generally. And so I have very little problem with my stuff at that temperature. But yeah, the Sonys have a problem. Obviously, Blackmagic doesn't have this problem because they added a fan. They put a fan in the camera. I know it sounds crazy, but Sony's listening. Fans.
The other thing, if you have that dummy battery in there, I'm not sure if this particular model of Sony had, but some of them have a little, it's like a rubberized pass-through for you to put the cord so that you can still shut the battery door, even though you have a wire running into it. Leave that open. That is another place for the heat to get out. And the other thing to check is, I know on the ZV-10 and also on some of the FXs, if you go into the menu for the power settings, it'll say like auto power off, high temp mode, or regular temperature mode. The high temperature mode allows it to get up to, I think, 10 or 15 degrees hotter than the standard before it goes ahead and cuts off. Next question.
Caleb Groom in Pinehurst, North Carolina is asking, you're running a big production this weekend. What's your last-minute pep talk to the crew?
Alex.
I was once on an Air Force base, and I asked a major. I was working on some stuff there, and I asked him. I said, "What's the Air Force version of hua?" Like I just didn't know what it was. I was like, "What's the Air Force hua?" You know, like that you hear in the Army or the Marines or whatever. And he said, "Yes," in an inside voice. and so that was his response. I think about that a lot. The reason I say that is that I don't do pep talks. What you do is it's constant low-key management of small details, of making sure that everything's in place, making sure that everything's ready to go. Having a big production on a weekend starts a week before, 2 weeks before, sometimes a month before, of the planning, the logistics of figuring out exactly what you need, making sure that all those pieces are in place, making sure everybody, you hired the right people and you put them in the right places and you gave them the right resources and you gave them all the information that they needed. I don't do that perfectly every time. Sometimes there's a lot of things moving, but that's what I worry about more than any kind of pep talk. Usually, if we do our job well, we're landing smoothly on the runway for an event. So, and trying to get enough runway to land well. That's the other part of that.
Next question.
This question is coming in from the QR code. Dan Sweeney in Long Beach, California, just had to salvage a show with a remote guest by having them use an iPad to join the cloud production to avoid their corporate VPN and other issues because they need to see return which iPad has the best front-facing camera these days.
Alexander?
I'd probably have to go with the iPad Pro, whatever the newest model is.
Alex?
Yeah, the iPad Pro and the MacBook Pro front-facing cameras are surprisingly good. So we have been able to lean into those cameras, specifically the MacBook Pro, the upper version of that. But the MacBook Pro's camera is as good as most other webcams. I mean, there's not really, and if you add Apple does a short depth of field or kind of a bokeh that is number one, it's adjustable, so you can sit there and slide it up and down. And it starts off much softer than everybody else's. So when you hit blur background on Zoom and Teams and everything else is really designed to obscure your background to make sure people can't see it. Apple's is designed to look good. and so there's a very different approach to how that works. And we find that when people turn that on just a little and they have it's surprisingly good.
The other thing that I would say for the iPad is because like any of these small cameras, it looks a lot better with a lot of light. So if you can make sure that there's a ton of light going into that frame, it's going to make a huge difference. The low light performance is not great. And the other thing about the iPad is it was either the iOS 26 or the one right before, or iPad OS 26 or the one right before it, you can use a regular USB-C webcam with the iPad. So if you still need to power it, then you can put it into some kind of breakout box or a dongle or the keyboard case that has the power plug in it. But being able to put a real webcam onto the iPad might also be an option if that's going to be your crikey kit. Next question.
This question is coming in from Zach Jeffers in Spokane, Washington. Netflix is set to buy Warner Brothers and HBO for $83 billion. What do you think of the consolidation of giants and the brute force takeovers of streaming? Will this continue the strangle on Hollywood?
TJ.
I would say this is not so much a brute force takeover of streaming. When streaming first came about, everybody wanted to do it to get a piece of the pie. They did not have any business model. They're just like, let's get something out there and let's throw all the money at it. And then reality kind of came in and it's like, hey, wait a minute. We're spending a ton of money. We're not making any money here. So we need to figure out how to make money. And through a lot of poor management decisions, a lot of companies that have been streaming are like, hey, we can't afford to do this anymore. So the consolidation of the streaming world, as it were, has been happening for a number of years. And Warner Brothers wants to be bought. they have been out there and say, hey, somebody please buy us because we're not good at managing ourselves anymore. So somebody needs to manage us. And so it's not a brute force takeover as such as just, frankly, poor management in a lot of businesses.
Alexander?
My concern with this, and who knows what's going to happen, but as a physical media collector, I'm concerned that Netflix is just not going to care about maintaining the archive and, restoring films and making sure they're preserved on physical media. I mean, even with Netflix's own original content, they are releasing Blu-ray discs of some of this stuff, but who knows how long that's going to happen for. So I don't know how much they really care about the physical media stuff, but I'm a big believer in preserving film and archiving stuff that matters, and I just hope that continues.
Alex?
Yeah, the hard part really is the middle content between Apple and YouTube is becoming less and less valuable at a record pace. So Apple's distorted the market because they're spending way more than everybody else. Like so there's just an enormous amount of money. They don't do as many projects, but the projects they do are very, very high quality with a lot of budget, and they have anyway. So they look a certain way that's hard for other streamers to keep up with. They also use less compression when they deliver it to the user. There's a bunch of other things about it that so the thing is it's hard for people who have Apple TV Plus, it gets harder and harder and harder to watch the other streamers because the quality of the content isn't as high, the quality of the delivery isn't as high. Like Apple's playing this game that no one else is ready to play. I wouldn't say that when they came out, I thought that the content they first came out with was fairly laughable, but they've gotten pretty good at what they're doing. The YouTube on the other side is a huge, and we talk about this all the time, but is this just unbelievable resource of all this middle content, of people putting together their own documentaries about this, that, and the other thing. And there's some of these documentaries are 12 minutes long, and some are 8 minutes long, and some are an hour long. And a lot of them are competitive with Discovery Channel, in the quality of the actual content, because they're done by a person who really cares about the subject, not people just doing it for their job. And so occasionally, and the problem is that it's not that they are as good as Discovery Channel or as good as National Geographic. They only have to be a little bit, 1/10 is good or 1/5 is good before people just start to watch that. And there's so much of it, and it's so vertical into people's interests. And so the problem is that all this content in the middle is getting squeezed hard, because they can't afford to do what Apple's doing, and they don't even know how to do what YouTube's doing. And YouTube just keeps eating up YouTube is really the thing that is just pressing up against all this middle content. Warner Brothers and Disney are probably the only two that are producing content that is getting close to Apple, and specifically in Warner Brothers, the only thing that really is competitive or potentially competitive with Apple is HBO or HBO Max or whatever they call it now. That's part of their problem, right? And so everything else that Warner Brothers owns is probably not that valuable, And so they've obviously got a movie library that'll cut some costs for Netflix, and that's probably enough to pencil out a bunch of stuff. So they were able to probably all the content that they have laying around. They have so that content will be useful. We'll always be able to watch The Matrix on Netflix now. So there's all those things that are there for us. But so that probably is how you justify it. And then you get the HBO group that helps Netflix, because Netflix is not very good at making content, in my opinion. Like as far as making really, really good content. The last really good thing that they made was Frankenstein, which is actually exceptional, but they didn't touch it. Like what they did is they gave Del Toro, just you do you, and that's the only way they've been successful at doing those things. And not many directors can you hand it to and have them actually come out with something great. So I think that's the challenge that Netflix has to solve. I don't think Warner Brothers. I think they were on fire. Like they had to get out of there quickly. They have way too much weight on them. So I think Netflix gets what it needs. I think Warner Brothers gets saved from total and absolute destruction. But the same problem still arises. This puts an incredible amount of pressure on. Disney's probably the other one that's up there. They've got a lot of great content. They've got potentially a lot of stuff, but it's questionable whether they can keep on executing on it. But Disney's the other one that is up there. Everybody else is going to consolidate, in my opinion. Now that this has happened, You've got Netflix, you've got Disney, Amazon, and Apple don't need to make money, so they'll continue to go forward. I think that those four sit at the top. Everything else consolidates inside of them, or inside of each other.
Yeah, I mean, if Netflix does, when Netflix does this, if they just raise their rates to include what I'm paying for HBO Max or Max HBO or Maxbo or whatever they call it this week, I'm not interested. I think that from a business standpoint, the consolidation or monopolization is bad for the user.
I watched a little of Netflix that I actually switched over to the ad version of Netflix. I kind of like
so little, yeah.
Like I was just like,
I tell you, the Paramount is ridiculous because you can't buy it without ads. It's so infuriating.
Right.
Also, Alex, that movie I sent you the link about the other day, that's a Catherine Bigelow. That actually is a Netflix movie, I'm pretty sure. It's called The House of Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Bigelow directed it. It's got some real flaws, but it's really well crafted. It's a really interesting story.
Yeah. I thought we just finished the Last Frontier last night on Apple, which was great writing, great story, and actually surprisingly bad visual effects. I was like, you're like, am I watching an Apple show? Like, is this like what happened here? Like somebody thought that was a good idea. There was quite a few of like, ooh, I don't. Someone ran out of money or something, which is an unusual thing for an Apple show, or just ran out of time, I guess.
The VFX in House of Thunder are, I didn't even think about them.
Yeah,
it's just a movie.
That's the way they should be.
Great stuff. Yeah.
If you've got a question for us, you can ask it 24/7 at askofficehours.global. Nothing to log into, nothing to sign up for. Just go askofficehours.global, put in your name, put in your question. We'll work those in over the next couple shows, just like Dan did for this next question.
This question comes in from the QR code. Dan Browning in Montana, USA asks, I use Fusion 360 for 3D modeling, but very occasionally use DraftSight Pro for 2D projects or opening my old projects. I'm tired of the $99 a year DraftSight subscription. Anyone have any cheaper 2D solutions?
Alex?
The people who don't want to pay for it, I don't know that many people who, if you're drafting, generally you want to pay for what you're going to use. If you're not using it enough and you just need a couple little things to draft, you may want to look at, I hit the wrong button, something like Libra CAD. This is an open source CAD program, only on the PC, I think. Let me see, hold on, let's see if we go down. Yeah, I think they're saying, hey, Mac, we need help. So, but I think that Windows is available there. So if you're looking for something that is free, and you're not doing very much with it, it might be enough for what you're doing. I don't think there's NanoCAD, but that still costs, I think, is at least as much as DraftSight. So there's not a lot of options there. I think that you have to decide. I mean, then you can get into just drawing programs. It just depends on what you need from a drafting program.
Yeah, I've seen some really incredible things done in SketchUp and Layout, even on the web only versions for people who are just dabbling in it or just need to do it as a one-off project. It's not going to be an AutoCAD. It's not going to be anything that is as heavy as an Autodesk project, and so you're not going to get that same level of output. But if you're just trying to show someone a scaled drawing to help communicate what you're trying to get across, both of those do really well. Next question.
Zach Jefferson, Spokane, Washington asks, bought my son his first 3D printer, i.e. I bought us our first 3D printer. What are some of those must-have life improvement prints you've done or seen?
Alex.
I don't really have anything specific that we print out. I mean, we fix a lot. My son and I fix a lot of things, and we build a lot of things together. So, and I will admit that mostly I challenge either my son or Kevin Hansen for who's in O9O to, we talk about things and build models, and I talk more than I model nowadays. But my son and I, when we're printing stuff, the main thing is understanding what surfaces you want to print with. PLA is going to be a harder, but more brittle kind of surface. And then you have TPU. TPU is more rubbery. And a lot of times we use a mixture of the two. So for instance, I built this little 3D rig. It's got TPU around the cameras, around the iPhones. And then it backs it up with PLA to give it structure, as we go through it. Then the other thing you want to be thinking about is how much fill you have. So, you might have a 15% fill. That's going to make it very light and not be as expensive and not take as much time to print, but it won't be as hard and rigid. So you might go up to, we don't usually go over 40 or 50%, but you might get a higher fill, and it's going to be a much harder surface or a much harder thing, but it's also going to take a lot more PLA. So those are the things to think about. The printer runs most of the day. So there's lots of little things that are getting built, but they're all usually little things that we need. And we don't have anything. We have, I think, a fast forge or whatever. It's not particular. It was like $300 or $350. But I'm looking at a resin printer. That's my next thing.
For me, it's and I don't have, my brother has a 3D printer, so I make him go through all of the trial and error. For me, it's always, I've got a way that I want to set my desk up, but I need everything to be I need my stuff to be almost in stadium seating. So it's I need the thing that's back there to be up a little bit and up a little bit. And so what we'll do is we'll grab like a polycam scan of the thing that we want it to hold, and then use that just to get our measurement points. And then with a little bit of trial and error, you can have very, very custom, nice stuff for your desk. Next question.
Next question comes from Jack Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois. What is the quickest and cheapest way to get my own internet set up for a venue this weekend?
Go ahead, Alex.
Cheapest and quickest. They'd say cheap, quick, good, pick two. So if you're trying to get the internet, it depends on where the venue is. I don't know, Kyle, if you're at the McCormick Center in Chicago or you're at a little bar, those are the two ranges probably. So you would have to tell us where you're, where you're at there. But but I think that cellular is usually the quickest way that you're going to get to somewhere. So that's so trying to find a bonded cellular solution, or in some cases, if you're trying to stream something, if you're being asked to do something on Friday for Saturday, you're not going to be able to make a bunch of great solutions. Like, I'm just letting you know. You find it, if you're in a smaller venue, find a neighbor. Literally, I saw a business next to where I had to stream. And I went over there and I said, "What kind of internet do you have?" And they're like, "Oh, we have Fios." And I was like, "Can I pay you $200 to run a cable out your window and into this window for this weekend, or for these hours?" And they were like, "Sure." And so then we did that. We streamed it. And that was so you can get really imaginative that way. Trying to get some kind of hard line is a great thing if you can. Otherwise, there's a lot of, the wireless, the 5G wireless, depending on where you are in Chicago. 5G wireless oftentimes is pretty useful. So you can oftentimes get a stream that's going to work. Obviously, I don't know if you'll be able to get what you need to bond something this weekend. So that might be hard. Make sure that you get great records. I think Mickey pointed that out. Make sure to get records and both of the edit as well as the individual cameras, so that if anything breaks up, you can fix it later.
The other thing, if you do end up going down the cellular route, two things. Number one, though, just going off of a hotspot versus using a dedicated MiFi device or better, that's a router with a cellular modem in it, is going to produce better results. But even with that, you may want to double check with Verizon or AT&T or whoever your service provider is as to what are your limits that you're going to bump up against when are you going to get throttled. I thought that I was hot stuff using a MiFi, and I was in 5G and everything, and I had it all set up, and the test went great, and I had so much fun on the test. I hung out for a little while afterwards, and then the next day, the cell phone carrier was like, "Hey, what are you doing there?" And they shot me right down. I made a phone call and was able to get it fixed, but there are restrictions in there. Hey, if you're finding office hours valuable, there are a couple ways you can help us. We've got you can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have a lot of volunteer opportunities, both during the show and after the show, all around it, keeping us moving forward. And we are a nonprofit, so it's a 501c3. You can go to officehours.global/donate if you'd like to help us out financially, keep the lights on, pay the bills. We appreciate that at officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Okay, this one is from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona, USA. Monitor and control for Sony came to the Mac recently. Have folks put this into their workflow?
Alex.
I haven't. I'm trying to get it. I saw this question and I was like, oh my goodness, monitor and control. I use it on my iPhone a lot with my camera. I can't get it to find the camera over Wi-Fi right now, so I'm not sure what's missing. But it isn't working currently. So, but it looks exciting to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think I have the iPad version of Monitor and Control running as a Mac app, so I would be curious as to how to use that as well. What I love about the iPad version is, or just the ability to have it on a Mac, is that if I am trying to play with my image, I'm trying to get everything set up, I can go in here and I can bring up whatever scopes are right within the camera. I can go in here, I can load my LUTs, but instead of having to like figure out how to get it from my computer over to a phone and then I can just hit, okay, I'm going to import a new LUT, and then it grabs it right off of my machine. So I can be tweaking a LUT in Resolve and then bringing it over and making those minor adjustments a lot faster, which means I get to play with it.
I don't see any version of this that is for specifically for the Mac. So it's an iPad version that's running on the Mac.
Other thing I would look at in the iPad version is go into the tools up here, and you can get pretty specific about how you want your monitors to show up and where do you want your how do you want the thresholds to be is where it's going to start warning you for things. It's a lot of fun, although you might lose your afternoon. Next question.
This question's coming in from Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota, USA. I rotated a 27-inch monitor 90 degrees, and when I open the Blackmagic Design switcher window, it doesn't fit horizontally. Is there any way to make it smaller?
Alex?
I don't think it's designed to do that. So I don't think it's, I think it's not going to know what to do with that. You may be the first person to ever try turning your 27-inch monitor sideways and then running the switcher window on it. So I don't know if it's going to, that's a out of band request for what it does. I don't think it'll work. I don't think that they'll help you, because they'll be like, you're the one person that's asking for this. So it could be an uphill battle there.
If you need it to be horizontal because of space for the monitor or what have you, Mix Effect Pro. If you've got if you're trying to control that ATEM remotely, you can make that interface whatever you want it to be. Chris?
Yeah, Tommy, I do what you're doing. I have actually, I think it might be a 24-inch monitor vertically with the switcher window on it, but it's one of three windows. At the top, I have the OBS software. Below that, I have the ATEM software, and below that, I have the Sound Pro software. And it's sort of my broadcast monitor. Like, that's all my stuff going out. But it's not vertical. The UI isn't vertical. It's just horizontal right across the middle of it.
Next question.
This one's from Rajan Chandil in Los Angeles, California. In Ecamm, is there a way to control each Zoom caller's audio for an ingested Zoom call inside Ecamm? Upon muting the Ecamm audio slider, audio acted as though it was never muted.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Ecamm does that. It should. This is part of how they've implemented the question is how they've implemented the SDK. If you're having that problem, there's no way that they shouldn't have that control. So if they have that problem, definitely reach out to Ecamm. They're actually very responsive. So it sounds like a bug. So I would definitely reach out to them.
Yeah, when you join a meeting with Ecamm in Zoom, what ends up happening is up here in your sound levels for Ecamm Live, it will say Zoom call as a single slider. So I think I'm experiencing the same thing as you are, Rajan, where you just get one level control for the entire meeting. So if your people inbound have their levels all over the place, then you've got an interesting challenge there. But I agree, since we know it's possible, we should all get together. All right, everybody, go to Ecamm, give them the feedback right now. We'll use the office hours army. We can do it. Next question.
This question's coming in from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Can Guy demo Onscreen Control, LG software that allows users to customize their LG monitor, manage screen layouts, and control display settings from their PC?
Good, Guy.
My apologies. I didn't see this one coming. I got totally involved in the other Google Cloud question, and I've deployed an RTX 2025. So now it's running, and I'm logging into it. So Andy Kokendorfer, you should definitely get a hold of me in either Discord or I found the way. It's on the left side to do a machine image, and it's called RTX 2025. It's no longer called server. It's just called NVIDIA RTX 2025. But Paul, I will go ahead, and I have that monitor here. I remember this question. He asked it like 2 years ago, and I had the answer. I think it was PC-only software. You couldn't do it on a Mac, but I'll have to go digging back. Sorry about that, Paul.
All right, that's going to wrap us for today. Thank you, everyone, for bringing your life experience. Awesome panel today. It was great to see some faces we don't always see on a Friday. Always makes for a fun day to get smarter. Thanks to all these folks coming in. Also, thank you to our producers for asking such great questions. If we had to send yours back and you asked via Makana, it'll be in your notes. If you ask via the QR code, we'll get into those again on Monday. Finally, thank you to our back-end crew who does a phenomenal job every single day, keeping us looking and sounding great, keeping us organized, building all the infrastructure. We truly are spoiled to get to do what we do, and it's thanks to you all. If we had to do this in person today, do the Tlaloc Traversal, we like to call it, for episode 2082, we'd have gone 36,000 miles. That's 57,000 kilometers, 281 million bananas for scale. See you in after hours.
The potassium highway.
This Google Cloud thing, I'm like, you're not going to beat me. You're not. Here, let me show you the screen. I'm like, you're not going to do it. You're not going to beat me. It's like, it's going to cost you $750 for the month if you deploy this. I'm like, deploy. We're going to figure it out. So it charges by the hour. So it'll probably be like $2 an hour. So this question costs $2.
There we go. Awesome. Ecamm I've been really digging into that over the last couple of days. Thanks again for sending me that meeting guy. I was trying to map out all the different shots and just explain in concept to people what was going on. It was so much easier
to have simulated
when it's guest 1, guest 2, guest 3, it just creates like people are trying to keep track of who is who. But when you just recognize the faces,